Joe Cronin won't be here. No. I don't know. There he is.
Oh, there he is. Look at you, just under the wire.
Yeah, Cronin's in Europe.
That's right. I forgot that he was on the European tour. The Joe Cronin European Vacation Tour.
Seven o'clock, guys. I'd like to call the September 10th, 2018 meeting of the County Council to order. And first item on the agenda will be the invocation, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance by Joe Brazel. Here tonight, Sister Mary Nuge from the Academy of the Sacred Hearts is here to lead us in the invocation.
Good evening. I'm Dr. Susan Dempf, head of school at the Academy of the Sacred Heart. 200 years ago tonight, on a hillside just a few blocks from here, St. Rose Philippine Duchesne and her companions were finalizing their plans to open the first free school west of the Mississippi in the Duquette Mansion. This past Friday, we celebrated the arrival of the Religious of the Sacred Heart here in St. Charles. This Friday, we celebrate the 200th anniversary of the opening of the Academy of the Sacred Heart. We thank you for extending this invitation to offer the invocation and are pleased to do so in a week which is cause for celebration for so many in St. Charles County. Joining me this evening is Sister Margaret Munch, a member of the Society of the Sacred Heart, who will offer our bicentennial prayer.
Spirit of the living God, you first breathed over the waters of creation, and one day you breathed a passion into the heart of Philippine Duchesne. You called her to cross the waters to a new world, to bring the message of your compassion and love to a land and peoples already dear to your heart. Not knowing the language of the land, she spoke the language of the heart, of love and prayer, of attention and openness, of steadfast purpose and living faith. Bless now our ever new world with Philippine spirit of great-hearted courage. Fill us with her desire to cross frontiers, especially those furthest from the touch of hope. Bless especially this evening the deliberations of the County Council. And we ask all this in your name, Triune God, whose love knows no borders or boundaries, and who sends us to make known that love in the heart of the world, now and forever. Amen.
Amen.
Okay.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please call the roll.
Councilmember Joe Cronin. Councilmember Joe Brazel. Councilmember Mike Elam.
Here.
Councilmember Dave Hammond.
Here.
Councilmember Terry Hollander.
Here.
Councilmember Mike Klinghammer.
Here.
Councilmember John White.
Here. Thank you. Tonight we have a public presentation. And who's going to?
Todd Barnes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, council members, leadership of the county, and fellow citizens of St. Charles County. For 60 years, Community Council has lived its mission statement of becoming the catalyst to bring people, organizations, and resources together to create a stronger, more compassionate community. In 1954, the Community Council, which I have the distinct pleasure and humble pleasure to be the executive director of, was founded on juvenile delinquency. So in our staff meetings and when I go to the cities and around the community, we talk about what was going on in 54, that our children were out of control and we needed to create an organization based upon that particular mission. Since that time, Community Council has established and worked with many, many different organizations to create an outreach to the community to solve pressing issues. In 1959, we helped create a psychiatric clinic with the St. Louis Mental Health Hospital, which later became Kreider Health Center. We worked to, in 66, we worked to bring the YMCA to St. Charles. In 1978, we loaned funds to form Bridgeway Consulting Services. And in 1986, we established a housing task force to address the lack of affordable housing. Then in 2004, we became the lead agency for a continuum of care. It was a HUD mandated organization that covered 3 counties, St. Charles, Lincoln, and Warren. And I'll bring you up to date on a coordinated entry program that was a mandate from HUD back in 2016 that launched in 2017, came together in 2017, and then we launched it here in January 23rd of this year. Coordinated entry is a process where our homeless neighbors have one entry point for resources. Prior to January 23rd, if you were homeless or in need of help, you called multiple agencies, or you called a friend, or you called different people that you may have known, and they suggested call this, or they would give you a phone number. If you called United Way 211, you were giving a listing of different phone numbers to call also. We turned that completely on its head on January 23rd of this year. By now, we're taking those initial phone calls on behalf of the agencies. We're doing a full deep assessment on our homeless neighbors, and homelessness is truly, if you're homeless on the street right now, or 2 weeks away from being homeless. That's the criteria that we follow. We do triage calls for other resources and help. We're really the first responder when it comes to those crisis calls. And we've taken over 2,900 phone calls in a little more than 7.5 months from folks that are in a homeless situation or soon to be homeless. And I'll go through some numbers here with you shortly. On January 23rd, we launched the coordinated entry after searching across the country for best practices and found that a front door, one phone number approach to our homeless neighbors' phone calls was by far the most effective to the ultimate goal of finding safe, secure, and attainable housing for our homeless neighbors. We partnered with United Way 211. If you are homeless, you dial 211, you enter a zip code, which is only of the 3 counties that we serve, St. Charles, Lincoln, and Warren. At that point, you are directed to our case management staff, which are both master and bachelor degreed case managers who do that initial assessment or triage. Based upon what that triage or assessment is, it then goes to a housing prioritization list. It may be referrals to different agencies to match those resources together. So our homeless neighbor is making one phone call, only one phone call, to find those match of resources. Then we go through our entire resource directory, of which we work with over 75 different agencies, churches, organizations, and single individuals to find the best match for the resources. Many times we're matching that homeless neighbor with 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 different agencies. So now it's a complete total circle of care that we work through. The first slide up in the top left-hand corner shows that since January 23rd, in the first 7 months of coordinated entry, we've actually assessed 1,932 folks that were either homeless or near homelessness. 1,932. Even though we cover 3 counties, 75% are right here in St. Charles County. 1 out of 3 are between the ages of 24 and 44. So I'm going to put a little different face on what we think our homeless neighbors are really about. But 1 out of 3 are between that 24 and 44. And 38% are under the age of 18. We have a great connection with Youth in Need, but many of these, as I'll talk to in a moment, are children of the parents that are homeless. On the second slide to the right there at the top, 59% are female. Again, maybe a change of what we would normally think would be our homeless neighbors, but almost 60% are female. We have some race demographics, which are different than the race demographics that we would see as a county as a whole. And then the family type. This is the one I really have a lot of eyebrows raised and a lot of gasps when we talk about it. 4 out of 10 of our homeless neighbors are single-parent females. Single-parent females, 44% make up the assessments that we've done since January 23rd, just in the first 7 months. 30% then are either single males or single females. The next slides, income. 40% of our homeless neighbors are employed, or I guess I could almost say underemployed in some cases, or working 2 jobs. The average cost of an apartment in St. Charles County is $932. And as we move to work with our homeless neighbors, move them into housing, of which I will talk about quite a bit of success that we have had as a community, we're finding that many times it's a roommate or a doubling up in a safe, secure place so they can afford that particular type. We have great connections also with workforce development. As Scott talks every time he has the opportunity, there's many, many jobs that are available. And we do work with workforce to find jobs for our homeless neighbors also. 70% in the next slide at the top live below the poverty level of $25,100 for a family of 4. 70%, even though they're employed, are living below that poverty level. We do get some disability status. There's about 303 of our neighbors have told us they have some disability. But when we go into a deeper assessment, which I'll cover here in just a second, we do find many, many mental and health limitations and disabilities that they may have. That's where we partner with more and more agencies to make that happen. And 2 out of 3 have health insurance. Could be Medicaid, could be Medicare, depending on age. But it also is many times high deductible insurance plans where our homeless neighbors are not able to make those deductible payments. So insurance for them is certainly there, but it's not in a position where they could use it as much. We found during our assessments, here's a breakdown by St. Charles County and also by Lincoln County and Warren County where we work. 75% of our assessments have come from St. Charles County. And I've been up and down Interstate 70 talking to the various mayors and the city councils. I just met with Mayor Faith last week. She's very competitive. She likes to be number 1 in a lot of things, but not necessarily this category. So you can see some of the other counties and the calls that we get. But St. Charles City has the highest amount of assessments that we've done for our homeless neighbors, followed by the unincorporated parts of St. Charles County, but that would also include Cottleville, Weldon Springs, Dardenne Prairie. O'Fallon has 273 assessments, Wentzville's 258, and St. Peter's 220. So that's where our homeless neighbors are landing. This is the first time that we've actually been able to see this as a continuum, as a full picture of what our homeless neighbor picture is really like. And we're able to actually see by individual cities what the homeless neighbors are. When I met with Mayor Faith on Friday, their single male population is much higher. That's what we see under the 70 and 370 bridge. It's not nearly that way in O'Fallon. Mayor Hennessy's homeless neighbors are much more in that 24 to 44 age group. About 82% of the homeless folks in O'Fallon are in that 24 to 44 age group. So we're able to actually see by cities now and be able to talk about where we can concentrate those resources when we work with the cities, and we also work with the opportunities to match those resources. When we do the assessment with our homeless neighbors, we do it on a phone. They call us through 211. We talk them through. A lot of times, the initial conversation is a short term. Talk us through what the crisis is, and we can make some connections that way. They may not necessarily come through the full assessment. As I said, we do the first responding. We make a lot of phone answering where it's, what can I help you at this point right now? When we do get into the deep assessment, and that's that 1,932 that we spoke about, we do what's called a VI-SPDAT. It's a vulnerability index. This is a nationwide use of a form of a assessment. And it allows us to then find the vulnerability of each of our homeless neighbors. The example that I have here are 201 of our neighbors that we know right now through our assessments that are living on the street. These are folks that do not have a place to live right now. The first one at the top scored the highest. She has a vulnerability index of 15, high medical, high mental. She has a disability status, and she does have mental health concerns. This is fairly recent. We've had 3 case notes with her. On the very right-hand side are the actual interactions that we've had with every one of our homeless neighbors. We call them back, they call us, we do additional matches. Our agencies that we work with make case notes too. So you can see through any, or we have 3, 9, 15, 12. So just because they call us the first time doesn't mean that we never have a conversation with our homeless neighbor. We're always having that follow-up conversation. And with our computer system that we have purchased about 4 years ago in preparation of coordinated entry, we're able to see case notes from across the continuum, all the different agencies as they put these in, and we'll continue to watch that circle of care. We talk back with our homeless neighbors on 30, 60, and 90 days, especially the 90 if we have not heard from somebody for a little while. And we've actually given out 56 cell phones in 7 months too, so that we can have our homeless neighbors keeping up with us. The next page is a prevention list. There's 154. These are the folks that are 2 weeks away from becoming homeless. So we do a lot of case notes in here too, and a lot of conversations with our resources, our partners, so they don't move from this list to the homeless list. So there's 356 folks that are homeless neighbors right now that are either on the street homeless, or they're going to be homeless within 2 weeks. Since January 23rd, I can tell you that with a lot of great hard work of the agencies, with the coordination of coordinated entry and our staff team, 186 of our homeless neighbors have been housed. We'll continue to work towards that number. We're looking, by the end of the year, we'll have housed over 300 of our homeless neighbors. As an example, continuum of care, there's a continuum for the county of St. Louis and a continuum for the city of St. Louis. Last year, the county of St. Louis housed 50, and we're at 187 already. And again, it's that coordination of bringing all those resources together and all the people working hard for that. This is an example of all of the referrals that go out to the different agencies. We have 75 different agencies, organizations, churches, individuals that we're working with. St. Joachim and Ann has been a huge blessing for us. They have almost 500 of our assessments, our referrals that we send out. So once we do that assessment, we match the best resource for that individual, for that homeless neighbor. We send the electronic referral. Many times we follow up with a phone call. They take over from that point, but we watch that assessment come together. And then we also look, if it stops at a particular place at an organization, we step back in and find out where the next organization or resource that we can find the help for our homeless neighbors. Anywhere from 400, almost 500 with St. Joachim and Ann to First Step Back Home has provided the cell phones for us, to gas cards that we get from some churches. And many of the organizations are telling us now that their front door phone numbers aren't ringing nearly as much, but the referrals that we're sending are much more qualified than what they had before, and they're able to rededicate their resources into exactly what's happening there. The last slide here is for your consideration the budget that we have. 2018, 2019, 2020, you can see what it costs for us to do this process. We are fully funded through 2020. Cities have stepped in to help us with this. Agencies have helped us. We have a Missouri Foundation for Health grant that runs out in 2020. And after that point, we're going to ask for your consideration in 2021, a $75,000 support for coordinated entry. And at that point, we'll continue to see a tremendous amount of folks that get housed. And this by far is the most fluid, the best way to house folks from best practices. Community Council has been serving in a social service role for the county. We do a lot of the HUD contracts, the data that's being asked to put together. Whenever a NOFA, a notification of funding opportunity, we pull the agencies together. We look at the ranking that it is for the priorities, and we make sure we come together as a continuum so that we have the best opportunity to keep that money flowing in. There's about $2.5 million that flows into our continuum from HUD, and Community Council helps make sure that that's coordinated and that we're working on the most top priority that's available. We're the lead agency for the continuum that I spoke early. We created the best practices for coordinated entry. And again, we're much like the first responders when it comes to the crisis and diversion counseling. Not every person that calls us necessarily gets a referral. And not every person that calls us gets a hotel stay either. We really work with them on creating that engagement for they can help themselves work through this. We also have relationships with three different banks and financial institutions that have taken referrals from us and work with our homeless neighbors to create a financial plan, because in many times, money's in, money's out, and they don't know how to necessarily work with that money, so we've worked with them on how to set aside monies so they can become financially independent. Any questions that you might have regarding coordinated entry? I appreciate the time this evening. And
Anybody have questions?
I believe so.
Thank you, Mr. Barnes.
thank you all very
Thank
much.
you, Tom.
Appreciate it.
Next item on the agenda is public comment. Do we have any speakers tonight?
We do. We have on Bill 4635, the first speaker against, Kevin Carroll.
Good evening. I was at the last meeting, I guess it was the Alderman meeting, when this bill was turned down. Or planning and zoning, okay. Now, the Riles family and his attorney was there. Now, there was a lot of things said. They've pretty much been given a tentative approval on a septic system on a 1.81 acre piece of, well, he's wanting to have it turn from agricultural to C2. Okay, my understanding is the county has an outstanding rule that it's 3 to 5 acres for septic systems. Because if you build a new house, you have to have 3 to 5 acres for a septic system. Sandy May has given him a tentative approval on a septic system on 1.81 acres with 400 feet of lineal drain field. Now, Mr. Riles stated, well, I called Duckett Creek and sewers will not be there for 7 to 10 years minimum. They said it's a temporary thing, the septic system is. So, and then they said that there's going to be 36 students per session through this gymnastics center. And he said that there would be 6 students per teacher. So that's another 6 persons. So there's 32 people minimum, plus the adults there. And she's given them a tentative approval for a septic system of 400 linear feet for this thing. And when I talked to Sandy May, she said, well, if you smell anything, call me and we'll get it fixed. You know, to me, I don't know how long they're going to be open. They're going to be open until 9 o'clock at night. So if they're open 9 or 10 hours a day, there's a possibility of, 400 to 500 people going through this building a day. And they only have a 400-foot lineal septic system. That doesn't compute to me. I'm not the sharpest rock in the pile, but you know. And then he wants 93 parking spots on this property for 36 people that are going to be there per session. So is his plan to build another building next to it, just like they did the batting cages across the street on Highway N? You know, I'd like these answers questioned. And there was other issues about Highway N. There's no improvements in plans for Highway N until 2022. So there's wrecks in that area weekly, right there on Highway N at Hopewell and Dwello Road. Is that my time?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
On the same application, and this is against, is John Adams.
Hi, my name's John Adams. I live at number 1 Falling Leaf Drive. I've just given them a copy of that. You guys have the same copy? Okay. Now the sports barn down the street, that's really a very unhappy neighborhood about that. And they told me the best I could do is ask for these things that are on my list. They said, you do not want that parking lot facing your property. The people come out of there and they bloop their key fobs and lights are flashing, horns are blowing, then people are getting loud. So they said the best I could do is have that building backed up to me no windows, no lights. And if that building has to go in, I just ask that, you have consideration. I have a family, we have to live there. And we don't want everybody, trespassing and, bothering us. So if it has to go in, I ask that you make demands these demands here. It's not even that much. I shouldn't have to deal with the parking lot. I shouldn't have to, I don't drink. We don't need drinkers and everything else. And the sports barns are selling beer now. So those people are dealing with that, beer cans and loud people drinking. And I ask that you just consider these things I've asked for. It's not that much. And I'll be a good neighbor. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Those are the only speaker cards I have on that application. Then I have one other speaker card, and that is for Arnie Dienoff.
Thank you, members of the County Council. Arnie A.C. Dienoff, public advocate and resident. And the first thing I have on my agenda for tonight is Bill number 4643, deals with the setting of the tax levy. You're putting the cart before the horse because state law requires you have to hold a public hearing on the tax levy, but there's no public hearing on the agenda. So I want to make sure that gets done before the second reading to comply with state statute. The other thing is I'm requesting a public hearing for the rezoning on Highway N, the gymnastics building, Bill number 4635. Septic, traffic, and intrusion on the neighborhood. Not to mention it was denied overwhelmingly by the members of the Planning and Zoning Commission. So I ask you hold a public hearing and that you deny this request. It's less than 60 feet from the last gentleman that spoke. So we have problems with our home rule county charter. It's sacred to me and our 400,000 county residents. It's important and a valuable tool. We have certain parties or county government that takes it upon themselves of interpreting and making their own rulings as it suits themselves politically and financially. Mr. Krismer, the retiring director, thank heavens, in December, has taken it upon himself to be a constitutional expert, a judge, jury, and decider in 2 weeks. After submitting over 34,000 county voter signatures, and 24,000 of those signatures were verified and validated by the county election authority. Now the courts have to get involved because it's a legal game and a fraternity of the legal system in our courthouse. Krismer was wrong by not certifying and throwing off the Clean Air and Smoke-Free St. Charles County initiative. Then he threw off the ballot of which you, 7 out of the 7 council members voted with 3 amendments, exemptions. Krismer also left on the 80 exemptions and 40 pages of exemptions, which violates our county charter. We need a county review charter commission. We spent the afternoon today in circuit court before Judge Pelican to get the initiative and the will of the people back on the ballot. The remaining charter amendment sponsored by Mr. Klinghammer and Mr. Hammond needs to come off of the ballot as the county charter has been severely broken and violated. I will file this week a writ of mandamus in county circuit court to remove your illegal and charter violations. When did the county hire billionaire Rex Singfeld's attorneys? Who's paying the bill of Chuck Hatfield from Jefferson City to represent the county and Mr. Hefner in his quest before Judge Pelican? County Councilor Keith Hazelwood's former law firm, Matt Fairless of Hamilton Weber, John Kelper of Hamilton Weber, and Victor Williams of Hamilton Weber. Who's paying those legal bills? We, the citizens, are being denied actions, a ballot opportunity, and the right to vote, a fair ballot for smoke-free and clean St. Charles County. Thank you.
Thank you.
And those are all the speaker cards I have.
Okay, with that, we'll go ahead and close public comment. Is there anything from the county exec tonight?
No, sir.
Thank you. Consent agenda. Are there any items to be removed from the consent agenda?
Motion to approve?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. The consent agenda passes. Next item is resolution
1807.
1807.
A motion, we remove it from the table.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. That's removed from the table. Recognition, the Center for Advanced Professional Studies, or CAPS as it's called. I believe we have somebody here tonight representing CAPS.
Nicole's coming up.
Good evening. I just wanted to share a little brief information about the CAPS program. So again, the acronym stands for the Center for Advanced Professional Studies. And we have launched this year in St. Charles County with all 5 school districts. And we serve 141 students in our program with 3 strands: global business entrepreneurship, healthcare, and technology solutions, which is a dual strand serving IT and creative media. And our program, our mission is to empower our student associates to discover their mission. So we want to help them through our business partners, immerse them in careers to figure out what is it that they want to do. And it's not about what their major in college is going to be, it's what's their mission. So what are their passions? What would they want to do career-wise that will make a difference and impact the future. And so we do that through our business partners. We have a variety of business partners that service our program through guest speakers, through site visits, through client projects, and through our mentors and our internships. And here with me today, I have our CAPS instructors. Dan Tripp is Global Business Entrepreneurship. Crystal Green and Dan Sacre are healthcare instructors. And John Amorashemi is our technology solutions instructor. And we also have a 9-person CAPS board that represents the 5 school districts and 4 business partners. And we meet monthly to apprise our CAPS board on updates with the program. And we have 2 of our CAPS board members here tonight, Susan Sands and Scott Dragnick. Scott somewhere in the room. There he is. And I also, more importantly, have 3 CAPS associates here with me, and from each of our 3 strands. I'd like to give them a second to give their elevator pitch. So one of the things that we've been working on, we start our semester off with a 12-day intense professional skills boot camp. And we cover what I call the 5 C's: communication, collaboration, creativity, critical thinking, and choice. And that 5th C, the choice, has to do with work ethic, your employability skills, so your attendance, your punctuality, and your project and time management. And so one of the things that we work on in our professional skills is how do you give a 30-second elevator pitch. And so our associates here tonight can certainly do that and share a little bit about themselves and about the CAPS program. So I'd like to introduce Drew Reihard, who is in the Global Business Entrepreneurship strand.
Hi, so I'm Drew Ryard. I'm a senior at St. Charles West High School, and I've been having a great year so far, but I mostly owe that to the CAPS program. I've been incredibly fortunate to be a part of the program, and as Ms. Whitesell has told you, we just finished our professional skills boot camp, which has been more educational than you would believe. I have gained so much skills in the last few weeks alone that I cannot imagine what we will be able to learn over the next year. We are starting to take on client projects ourselves. I get the privilege of working with Alpha and Omega Roasting Company, but everyone will be meeting their clients over this next week. We get to do fundraisers for already established nonprofit foundations, and by the end of the year, I'll have my own business running. And it is my pride to be a part of this program. I'm very, very happy to be here talking to you today.
Thank you, Drew.
Well spoken, young man.
Colton Smith, Technology Solutions.
Good evening. My name is Colton Smith, and I'm a senior at Fort Small East High School, and I'm enrolled in St. Charles County CAPS Technology Solutions. I look forward to studying the field of business and specializing in engineering management. CAPS is the Center for Advanced Professional Studies program, which immerses students in professional environments, where the curriculum has been developed by industry professionals, ensuring that what we learn in the classroom is relevant to the workplace. I enjoy CAPS because I learn how to communicate effectively and network. CAPS is also helping me gain exposure to what the business world is truly like. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Colton. And Julie Martin, Healthcare.
Good evening. My name is Julian Martin. Thank you. And I'm a senior at Timberland High School, and I'm enrolled in the St. Charles County CAPS Healthcare Strand. CAPS is the Center for Advanced Professional Studies program, and what it does is it allows high school students to go into the hospital, and we get to shadow doctors and nurses in order to really learn what the workforce is about. Personally, I wanted to join CAPS because of my love of science, and gaining knowledge from the CAPS program has helped me learn about professional skills and what the workforce is really like. This year has been amazing with the CAPS program, being able to shadow doctors and learn from them. Thank you.
Thank you.
So Nicole, I don't think you introduced yourself.
Oh, I'm sorry. Nicole Weitzel, and I have the pleasure of serving as the director for the St. Charles County CAPS program.
I think at this point, we need to read the resolution.
I just wanted to point out real quick, so Susan Sams and Scott Drochnick have been talking about this program for the longest time. I think it was 2 years ago, I remember Scott, there was an event that the EDC hosted, and Scott was talking about the CAPS program back then, and Susan has been a charger on this one all the way through. I've known John for a very long time, so I appreciate the fact of the crew that you have together, your instructors, I appreciate your time. You guys are amazing. So the cool part about this program, and why I really wanted to do this resolution tonight, is the CAPS program is really putting our students in the business community. So they're really putting, you know, so many times when you were in school and you were taking this class, you're like, really? Do I really need to know this? I don't think so. Yeah, maybe you do, right? So this is how you actually apply the knowledge that you're learning in that classroom in a business environment. And they're being able to see that one-to-one. I appreciate the fact that you're in a hospital talking to doctors. Don't worry, it gets better, right? So don't let them talk to you. So it's going to be all good. But I was excited about the CAPS program. I'm excited about where you guys are going to go. And I'm excited about developing future leaders for our county. And I think that's exactly what the CAPS program is going to do. So I'm very excited about that part. So yeah, if we want to read the resolution, we'll pass that and get a nice photo.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Resolution 1807, a resolution recognizing the Center for Advanced Professional Studies, or CAPS program, in St. Charles County for its efforts to immerse students into business settings to help them better understand their career and training options for the future. Councilmember Brazel.
Yes.
Councilmember Elam.
Yes.
Councilmember Hammond.
Yes.
Councilmember Hollander.
Yes.
Councilmember Klinghammer.
Yes.
Councilmember White.
Yes.
If you would, if you come up here, I'd like to take a quick photo. Mary's going to come up. Guys, come on up. You're front and center here. This program's about you, not about us. Yeah, would you guys mind standing up? Scott, would you come on up here? Slide on in.
Yeah, how are you? Good to see you.
Here, do me a favor. Hold that. I don't have a framed copy, so we're going to hold that right now.
One more second.
Everybody going?
Very good.
It's a very fascinating program. I wish that was around when I was senior in high school. Okay.
1809.
Next item on the agenda is Resolution 1809. I need a
And
motion.
We do have Patricia Meeks Dickherber is here to accept the resolution, so if it's okay, I will read the resolution. Resolution 1809, sponsored by council as a whole, a resolution recognizing September 17th through 23rd as Constitution Week in St. Charles County, Missouri. Whereas the St. Charles chapter of the Daughters of the American Revolution has been in existence since 1909, and whereas this chapter has a Constitution Week committee with goals to preserve the past, enhance the present, and invest in the future, and whereas the Daughters of the American Revolution wish to educate all citizens, especially the youth and newly naturalized citizens, about our founding documents and encourage all in the community to protect and defend the Constitution. And whereas the Daughters of the American Revolution started a tradition of celebrating Constitution Week many years ago, and whereas in 1955 the Daughters of the American Revolution conveyed a petition to Congress to dedicate September 17th through 23rd as Constitution Week, and whereas the U.S. Congress adopted such a resolution and President Dwight D. Eisenhower signed Public Law 915 on August 2nd, 1956, to establish such an observation, and whereas during this time we remember that the Constitution is a living document that guarantees the freedoms Americans enjoy. Now therefore be it resolved by the County Council of St. Charles County, Missouri as follows. Section 1, the St. Charles County Council hereby proclaims the week of September 17th through 23rd, 2018 as Constitution Week in St. Charles County, Missouri. Section 2, the St. Charles County Council hereby further asks citizens to reaffirm the ideals the framers of the Constitution had in 1787 by vigilantly protecting the freedoms guaranteed to us through this guardian of our liberties.
Thank you.
And I've made arrangements to get this resolution to Mr. Kerber, who was kind enough to come in, so.
Would you like to say a few words tonight?
We want to thank you very much, the council and the county, for always supporting us in this Constitution Week proclamation. We try to go to the schools and the libraries and explain to the kids what the Constitution is and what it means to us. So this means a lot to us. Thank you all so much.
Well, thank you.
A resolution recognizing September 17th through 23rd as Constitution Week in St. Charles County, Missouri. Councilmember Elam?
Yes.
Councilmember Hammond?
Yes.
Councilmember Hollander?
Yes.
Councilmember Klinghammer?
Yes.
Councilmember White?
Yes.
Councilmember Brazel?
Yes.
And that passes. Moving on to the next item, bills for final passage. Bill number 4632.
Bill number 4632, an ordinance amending section 126.030 of the ordinances of St. Charles County, Missouri, OSCCMO, regarding the classification of certain employees in non-merit positions within the Department of Information Systems and duties and powers of the Director of Information Systems with respect to the employees occupying non-merit positions.
Is there any comments or questions? Hearing none, please call the roll.
An ordinance amending section 126.030 of the ordinances of St. Charles County, Missouri, OSCCMO, regarding the classification of certain employees in non-merit positions within the Department of Information Systems and duties and powers of the Director of Information Systems with respect to the employees occupying non-merit positions. Councilmember Elam?
Yes.
Councilmember Hammond?
Yes.
Councilmember Hollander?
Yes.
Councilmember Klinghammer?
Yes.
Councilmember White?
Yes.
Councilmember Brazel?
Yes.
That passes. Moving on to bills for introduction. First bill is 4634.
Bill number 4634, requested by Michael Hurlbert, sponsored by Joe Brazel, an ordinance amending the zoning district map of the County of St. Charles, Missouri by rezoning land from A Agricultural District to RR Single Family Residential District as per application RZ 1807.
Are there any comments or questions on this bill? Hearing none, let's move on to Bill 4635.
Bill number 4635, requested by Michael Hurlbert, sponsored by Joe Brazel, an ordinance amending the zoning district map in the County of St. Charles, Missouri by rezoning land from A Agricultural District to C2 General Commercial District as per application RZ 18-08.
Mr. Brazel.
Robert, is this? Does the applicant own the two lots, the two residential lots behind the lots they purchased off Highway N, do you know?
I don't know that.
It says,
Sorry.
What's the, oh, that's all right. I mean, I was wondering if that's part of the plot. It looks like it was maybe the field up front, but, so did staff deny this, or not, did you guys recommend against this as well?
No, we're recommending in favor, but realizing that there are some limitations for redevelopment to commercial, which we tried to explain, not in an attempt to stop necessarily rezoning, but just so there would be no surprises during the development review process.
What is this, the master plan call out on this area? What does it call out?
Master plan for the Highway N corridor, actually this is two parcels technically. The east parcel, it recommends high-density residential, and the west parcel, it recommends commercial in future 2025.
So to one side, there's a residence, Mr. Adams' house is to the, looking at it down, is to the right, and then there's a church to the left, correct? and then there's there's houses behind it,
Right,
correct?
yes.
And then the pieces across the street are commercial, but that's Lake St. Louis, or what city is that?
It's, Highway N is a dividing line between two different sanitary districts. And on the north side, that's a different sanitary district, and it's also largely Lake St. Louis.
Do they have sewers or septic across
They
the street?
have public sewer across the street, but the dividing line is the Highway N. So on the south side is Duckett Creek Sanitary District. And they don't have sewers in the immediate area, public sewer, so it'll be some years before they're extended to the south side of Highway N in this corridor.
Is this a practice that we've gotten into because it is, the gentleman's right, it is 3 to 5 acres for septic, so I'm concerned that if it's agriculture, do we typically zone to commercial with that small of a lot?
Well, the rule is that newly created lots that will be on the septic system, it has to be a minimum of 3 acres. But for existing lots, the sanitary service inspector for St. Charles County can consider on a case-by-case basis for lots of less than 3 acres, down to a minimum of 1 acre. But again, it's on a case-by-case basis. They consider things like the soil capabilities and the details about how it would be used. But in this case, from what I understand, the applicants for this rezoning case, we're not really at the case of, or at the point of reviewing this as a site plan or as a conditional use permit. But to be prepared, I understand the applicants have spoken with Sandy May, the septic inspector, and asked her what would be necessary for this particular facility, and they're trying to take that into account. And from how they testified at Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, they're fully prepared to be able to make that work for this lot. That was their testimony.
Well, there were some calls. I had calls. Mr. Crow and Mr. Adams both talked to those guys, and is it true that the building's going to be a metal barn-looking thing, or?
That I don't know. I'd have to ask the applicant.
I guess I'll ask one of you guys. Yeah. Does anybody have questions for Robert?
No, but I share some of the concerns you have, and I think I'd like to hear from the engineer and also the applicant.
Okay.
If you don't mind coming up and. I guess number one is, how do you plan on addressing the sewer? Because that's concern
So
I
let
have.
me introduce myself. My name is Ryan Barr. I'm with Echelon Constructors. We have Paul. He's the owner of High Energy Gymnastics. And then Doug's with Pickett Ray and Silver, our civil engineer. So we went through the P&Z. The questions really that came out weren't necessarily the zoning use for it, because it did meet the long-term zoning plan of it, but it was more along the engineering questions and layout and parking counts and stuff like that. So what we did since then is we went and engaged Pickett Ray and Silver to actually do our civil engineering plan to address the questions that were raised at that point in time. So I'll let Doug kind of expand upon the design aspect of it, and then we'll let Paul kind of iterate again on the kind of the low use aspect of this facility being 4 classes a day.
Good evening. My name's Doug Tiemann. I'm an engineer with Pickett Ray and Silver. As Ryan said, we have now developed a site plan for this piece of property. We've looked at the drainage, we've looked at the sanitary sewer. We've also submitted a plan to MoDOT for the entrance. We have addressed several of those issues. First of all, in the sanitary sewer, we are showing a sanitary on-site sanitary sewer system that we're proposing to be on there. It will be sized big enough to handle the load of students. Understand that students what they generate is about 10 gallons per student. It's not like a home where you're doing laundry and bathing and those types of activities that use 120 gallons per bedroom. We're talking about a lot less usage when you generate this type of a environment with students on it. The soils in this area are pretty good. They've already went through the soil tests. I have personally talked to Sandy May and explained the system. She is comfortable with that system. We have also formally submitted this to Sandy May and asked her to give an approval on that system. We do have some flexibility, and if we need to add additional lines, we can add additional lines to this system. But right now, this system is sized to handle about twice as much as the average flow. So our soils are good enough in this area. They're pretty good. And we do not have the use that you have coming out of a facility where you have like a normal home. You have students, but it's a lot less usage. We have also looked at the drainage. The drainage from this site goes north. So our rain gardens will be on the northern portion of this site. They will drain around front, and there's a culvert under Highway N that we will tie into, and it drains to the north. So there won't be any drainage impacts that come to the south on the site. We've also just talked to the resident, and we may have a possibility of being able to flip the site. We're going to look into that further and see if we can meet his request and flip the site so we put the building on the east side and the parking on the west. We're showing landscaping, which meets the county's requirement. We will look at doing a berm or whatever method to be able to protect and buffer this from the adjacent properties. So
Okay.
And as far as the site distance, we have adequate site distance. And as I said, I've already submitted this to Paul Graham at MoDOT to get approval on that.
What type of restroom facilities are you planning to have there? Will you have showers?
No, no showers.
And the 10 gallons per participant, sir, is way off. They're there for an hour. And as a father of two young ones, they get in the bathroom, they use the restroom before getting in the car. We'll run 4 classes a day, the morning classes. So, I just want to rest assured that we also intend on being good neighbors. 90% of our customers will come from 4-mile radius, serving the families in that area. And of utmost importance to us is happy neighbors. But the morning, 12 kids at 10 a.m., and then 3 classes in the evening, 4:50 p.m., 6 p.m., 7:10 p.m. It's the 10 gallons per participant. That just won't happen. They'd have to go to the bathroom 10 times in that hour. Just to utilize the capacity we already have on paper. And then, the ages. So, one, we will not be applying for liquor license, ever. It's not a good idea to fill the parents up on liquor and then send them home with their kids in the backseat driving. It's also a huge liability for us. Just won't happen. 75% of our families, our clientele, are children from the ages of 18 months to 10 years. That's who does gymnastics.
Yes.
Yeah, this did come to planning and zoning, and it was a little bit confusing because it showed at that time somewhere up around 90 parking spaces, and you were telling us there's going to be, 36 people there at any given time, which led us all to scratch our head and say, well, why do we have a parking lot that would have 3 times the number of people, and all of them driving themselves, not students? I mean, even at 56, it still has me kind of wondering. The print on this is so small, I think it says 56. It still has me wondering, why such a big parking lot if most of the kids are getting dropped off?
Well,
and hold on just a second, because one of the other things that planning and zoning looks at is not only the use of the building today, and we all agree that gymnastic centers are great for our kids. We love them, it's a great activity, but we also try to guess a little bit into the future about what might be there after you become tremendously successful and build a bigger place somewhere else. See, I look to the positive, not to the negative
Appreciate
side. So then we'd be faced with a building that had this giant parking lot and would be prime for something else to come in there that required a big parking lot, like perhaps a restaurant or something else. And it made us raise a lot of questions.
So to answer your question, that was our fatal flaw in not doing the front-end engineering. It was more of a concept plan for just, this is our use. We're going for zoning approval, not necessarily design approval. So we took a step back, learned from that, and did our design to come in with it laid out. So you're correct. We did not have a science to the initial parking lot that was laid out there. So this is designed more adequately. Why is it more than 36 cars? Because you will still have some overlap in your student load between your hour classes that are rolling through. Okay. So
We separate our classes by 10 minutes. So one class will finish at 5:50 p.m., 6 p.m. will be the next class, and there will be a little bit of traffic generated from that.
Fair enough.
Go ahead.
What is the building going to look like?
that has not been designed yet, but it is a clear span building. So because to get the 70-foot clear span, we are going to be a pre-engineered metal building with an architectural skin veneer on it. So, you know, your fronts will probably have a short lick and stick type stone. Very few punch windows. It'll probably be a 7x9 storefront entrance system, but you know, it'll be a single slope structure. But architecturally, we haven't taken that step yet.
Well, there are some concerns that it was going to be a metal pole, like a pole barn, so to speak, and I think we want to kind of avoid those kind of things.
Understand.
So if we do move forward, maybe we'll put that in a stipulation. But I don't know. This lot seems small for the use. I'm not sure. I was going to ask some questions to the residents.
Okay. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Mr. Carroll, can you come up here a minute? Now, are you the president of the homeowners association?
No, I'm not. I'm just a concerned resident.
Right.
And like I said, we were told a lot of things. The last meeting, we were told that there were going to be 36 students per session, and there was going to be 6 students per teacher, is what we were told. Now, you know, my concern was how many sessions. Now, if I already called the real estate agent, asked what the price was. The real estate agent told me there's sewers that run along that property. And I said, no, there's not. Oh, well, you're right. Well, like I said, my concern is that if he has 36, well, if he's only going to have 54 students a day, if I'm going to drop, I'm just going to throw a number out, $150,000 for 1.8 acres. Okay, then you build a building. 54 students a day. How long is that going to take me to recoup my money to build this big building, you know, do all this work? You know, it's going to, you know, that's not you know, to me, you know, I guess there is money in it.
Well, my point is, we're not up here to analyze this business plan.
We don't look at it from a business
standpoint. Okay.
Yeah, but my question is this, is you'd call with, what I'm
my
asking,
concerns.
specific concerns about this.
Well, there were several concerns. Like I said, I called on, there's wrecks right there. Our subdivision sits here on top of a hill. Then it dips down, then you come up to Hopewell and Dweller right there.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
Yeah.
The statement was made at this last meeting, Highway N is not Manchester Road. He was absolutely correct. This is not Manchester Road. Manchester Road is 4 lanes with turn lanes. Highway N doesn't have turn lane. Some spots it does, but here it does not. And since Page comes out there, traffic backs all the way up past the high school or past Boone Trail there, from Z all the way down. There's wrecks there all the time. Now, is he going to put in a turn lane? Because I called MoDOT and they said nothing is scheduled for Highway N until 2022. That's 3 years. You know, those are my concerns. You know, we can't get in and out of our subdivision now. So if you're going to throw another 54 cars turning left, you know, if they're coming down, you know, from Page turning left into to his building, I know we cannot stop progress. But, I was always the understanding about septic systems, Because if the county approves this, everybody I know will be applying for septic systems on less than 3 acres of property.
Okay, all right, thank you, sir. I got one more question for John Greifus. On the road improvements, is it 2022? Because I thought that was in motion for that Dwello Road curve and all that.
For the Hopewell Dwello, that'll be a little sooner. That project, County Highway took the lead on, even though it's a state route, because it was a dangerous curve that you brought to our attention. So they applied for federal funds. Federal funds were secured. Construction for Hopewell Dwello, I think, is scheduled for, it's still 2 years out. They still
21, 22, is that correct still?
So it'd be 1920.
2020, okay, 20, okay.
Now, that's just for the Hopewell Dwello intersection to kind of straighten out those curves.
Is that not in, does that not include a turn on in where those intersect, or?
It would not be in front of this property here. It's just right there at Hopewell and Dwello.
Okay.
The remainder of the corridor, the county council approved $1.5 million. We're providing MoDOT to do a full environmental study, to have that discussion with the residents of what should Highway N be in the future. We all know a 2-lane road is not what it needs to be. Does it need to be a Manchester road with 5 lanes and a turn lane, or can it be a 3-lane road? That study is just getting started. It'll take MoDOT about 14 months to get that finished and wrapped up. So that's probably where the 2022 for any type of construction on Route N itself would be coming from, because that study would have to be completed first.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Dave? Yeah, one of the things I don't quite get is I know they have sewers on one side of the road, right? Sewage system, correct? But not on this side that we're talking about. And I know it's 2 different sewer districts, but it seems to me like a 7-year projection is pretty long, wouldn't you think? I mean, I don't know if there's anyone here from Duckett Creek or who we could ask, but doesn't that seem like a pretty long period of time, for getting sewers in? I don't know.
Yeah,
you would know this question, probably.
It's a pretty long time.
The problem is, well.
And I guess.
Because, I mean, that seems to be the real hang-up here, right, is the septic tanks and the sewage thing, besides the size of the lots. I just, I don't know.
Since they don't have showers, I don't think that's as big as concern that I had at the beginning, but it's still a concern, especially if, they move out and somebody else wants to come in there that has a more intense use. It could create a real problem. So I still have some concerns about that. Any other comments? Hearing none, let's move on to the next bill.
Bill number
4636, I'm sorry.
No problem. Bill number 4636, requested by Michael Herbert, sponsored by Mike Klinghammer. An ordinance authorizing the county executive or his designee to execute a grant agreement and funding approval with the State Emergency Management Agency, SEMA, for a grant from the Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA, to fund 100% of the projected total cost of acquiring and demolishing 2 residential structures sustaining severe and repetitive loss in flood hazard zones of unincorporated St. Charles County.
Any comments or questions? Hearing none, let's move on to Bill 4637.
Bill number 4637, requested by Michael Herbert, sponsored by council as a whole. An ordinance amending section 505.040 of chapter 500 Building Codes and County Building Commission ordinances of St. Charles County, Missouri, OSCCMO, to provide for permit and inspection fee waivers for construction or retrofitting activities of homes of members of the United States military and first responders who are disabled in the line of duty.
Any comments or questions on this bill?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to amend section 1B, and it would read, without requiring the payment of such fees. Additionally, any fees paid prior to May 26, 1999 shall be refunded.
And that needs to be stricken. That additionally, any fees made prior, that needs to be stricken.
Needs to be stricken. Delete that.
Remove that last sentence.
Yes.
So I got a motion, second. Got a motion is second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Any other, no questions, we'll move on to Bill 4638.
Bill number 4638, request by Craig Tykowski, sponsored by Dave Hammond, an ordinance authorizing execution of Missouri Highways and Transportation Commission State Block Grant Agreement, Amendment Number 2, Airport Improvement Program Grant Project 16-111A-1, and accepting said grant in the amount of $268,721 for design and construction of apron rehabilitation at Smartfield Airport.
Any comments or questions on this bill? Hearing none, we'll move on to Bill 4639.
Bill number 4639, request by Scott Lewis, sponsored by Dave Hammond, an ordinance authorizing the county executive or his designee to execute award letters, awarded agency contracts, and property transfer documents from the Missouri Police Chiefs Charitable Foundation, MPCCF, for receipt of equipment from the Law Enforcement Terrorism Prevention Program under the management of the MPCCF.
Any comments or questions? Hearing none, we'll move on to Bill 4640.
Bill number 4640, requested by Bob Schnurr and Christine Ramsdell, sponsored by Dave Hammond. And this, I will read the entire bill. An ordinance amending the 2018 budget adopted by ordinance 17-113 for positions within the St. Charles County Facilities Management Department. Whereas the construction of the new St. Charles County Emergency Operations Center is nearing completion, and where the Facilities Management Department is in need of additional custodial personnel to manage the day-to-day custodial needs of the new facility, and whereas the Facilities Management Department currently has a part-time custodian in its 2018 personnel budget, and whereas the Director of Facilities Management desires to increase the part-time custodian position to full-time in order to provide the additional services needed at the new facility, and whereas the 2018 annual budget approved by ordinance 17-113 as amended needs to be amended to reflect the personnel change, and whereas the St. Charles County Charter Article 6, Section 6.208 authorizes the County Council to provide by ordinance any and all procedures for administering the budget that are necessary and that do not conflict with the language contained in the charter. Now, therefore, be it ordained by the County Council of St. Charles County, Missouri as follows. Section 1, the budget of St. Charles County, Missouri for fiscal year 2018 is adopted by ordinance 17-113 in the Facilities Management Department, 0910, is hereby amended as follows. 1, increase the number of currently budgeted full-time custodians, pay grade 109, from 1404 to 14.50. Section 2, this ordinance shall be in full force and effect as of passage and approval.
Are there any comments or questions?
I have one real quick. Do we really manage down to 4/100ths of a person? We have 14.04 full-time employees. I don't know, a half a person I can understand, but 4/100ths of a person? That's some tight budgeting there. Wow, all right.
Mr. Stark, Mr. Stark.
You asked, so I'll tell you. It's a combination of part-time employees.
Okay.
So it just adds up to that 4/10.
4/10?
Yeah.
No, it's
There's
4.
several.
It's
There's a
4/100.
number of.
It's
There's
not
a number
4/10s,
of
it's
part-timers.
4/100ths. It's 400ths
Well,
of
that's
a
just
person.
yeah, it's just the way that the
Okay.
it's rounded. So
All right.
or not rounded.
Let's round up to 14, or down to 14.
Any other questions on this bill? Hearing none, let's move on to Bill 4641.
Bill number 4641, request by Dr. Mary Kay, sponsored by Dave Hammond, an ordinance authorizing the county executive to execute a program services contract with the Missouri Department of Health and Senior Services for enhanced opioid surveillance toxicology testing reimbursement.
Any comments or questions?
Is there anybody here that can explain this real quick?
I can. There is an interest at the federal level in being able to acquire some certain information about opioid epidemic. And so what this is a grant that allows us to get reimbursement for certain information that is not confidential, that we're reporting to the state and then ultimately to the federal government.
What kind of surveillance are they talking about? I mean, is that just a term they're using, or?
Right, it's just a term meaning that they're looking at what's going on with opioid deaths in the county.
Okay.
Any other comments or questions? Hearing none, let's move on to Bill 4642.
Bill number 4642, request by Dave Todd, sponsored by Mike Elam. An ordinance amending the 2018 budget adopted by ordinance 17-113 to add one sergeant pay grade 210 within the Cybercrime Unit, Bureau of Criminal Investigation, St. Charles County Police Department.
Any comments or questions?
Why are those Dave's here to explain it? Are
Well-
you here, Dave?
Yes. I don't know if you have specific questions, or I can tell you how this come about, or why we're requesting this. This task force is comprised of several agencies. There's 5 or 6 outside agencies to include St. Charles City, St. Peters, O'Fallon, Franklin County, Warrenton, and also Lincoln County. Some of those salaries are funded by a Department of Justice grant, and it's through ICAC, which is the Internet Crimes Against Children. What happened was the Franklin County salary was funded 100%. His salary is obviously increasing. We had several individuals that left the task force for private sector jobs, and that created an issue where we had to dedicate some of that grant funding to training. This training is very expensive. Hardly any of it's local. It's very lengthy training, as you can imagine, forensically examining these media devices. So we had to dedicate some of that funding from the salary from Franklin County, which was the sergeant in the unit, to this training. And also with the increase in his salary, Franklin County also had a Prop P passed down there, so his salary was going up. And they also have manpower issues, so that kind of combined for them requesting to pull him out. So it was a combination of funding, and they want basically their manpower back. So that left us with the deficit of not having a first-line supervisor and a sergeant of a task force of this size and dealing with the work that they do. So it's imperative that we get a first-line supervisor in there. We've solicited some of the other departments that are involved in this, and nobody's interested in this because we cannot fully fund this. It would be roughly about a 50% grant-funded position, with the county covering the rest if you approve that position. So, is there any questions?
Well, I was going to ask you, you guys got successes. I mean, this task force does a good job. You want to talk a little bit about that? And then, do you guys need any other, besides this, with budgets coming up, do you need any other help from the county council for this unit?
Well, I'll never say no to any help you want to give. I'd be foolish. But if we can get this position funded, that would be of great assistance. And yeah, we have had a lot of success. Just last year, we worked over 400 cases and analyzed over 1,200 pieces of media. And just to give you an average, it takes about 40 hours to analyze some of these computers and that, to get all these files out. Most of it is directed towards child exploitation crimes. However, we do a multitude, a variety of crimes that just about everything with crime scenes now, there's some type of digital footprint left. So, I mean, we're getting phones, computers, tablets. We even have an officer trained that can analyze the black box in the vehicles and give you a lot of information on the vehicle. So in that aspect, we have had a lot of success, and it's just a growing field. I mean, with all the electronics, it's only going to expand, and our need is going to increase.
Mr. Chairman, just so there's no confusion later, so when the captain references that it's paying about 50%, it's what the grant will pay is about 50% of the direct salary, but the county will be covering the overhead and the other half of the direct salary. So it ends up basically being the grant will pick up 1/3 of the total cost, and the county will pick up 2/3.
Okay, any other questions?
Thank you, Captain.
Thank you. Hearing none, we'll move on to Bill 4643.
Bill number 4643, request by Robert Schnurr, sponsored by Dave Hammond, and I will read this bill also. An ordinance fixing and establishing the rate and levying of taxes for the general revenue funds and for various special funds of and for the County of St. Charles, Missouri for the year 2018. Be it ordained by the County Council of St. Charles County, Missouri as follows. Section 1, subject to a public hearing on this date, an ordinance shall be passed reflecting the following tax rates. A, for the general fund of said county being for ordinary purposes, the rate is 0 cents on each $100 of assessed valuation, B, for the Road and Bridge Fund of said county, the rate is fixed at 18 79 cents on each $100 of assessed valuation. C, for the Dispatch and Alarm Fund of said county, the rate is fixed at 4 22 cents on each $100 of assessed valuation. Section 2, this ordinance shall be in full force and effect from and after the date of its passage and approval.
Thank you. Is there a public hearing scheduled for this, or does it require a public?
It's always at the second meeting,
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Is there, this is flat, though. I mean, there's no
It
increases.
is, it's the same as last year. I don't know whether
Do we
Bob
ever,
wants to
do we
speak to
ever
that.
raise
but-
it? Do we ever raise it? I don't think we ever did raise it, did we? Did we ever raise it? I don't, or has it always been, it's been flat for a long time, hasn't it?
Well, the property tax has gone down and down and down and zeroed out long before the law required it to. It was nearly zero, as you know, for a number of years, but.
Bag of peanuts.
And
Like there's some
the,
peanuts involved in there.
the rates are submitted to the state and they're audited there and they come back. So they're not only flat, they're already
Yeah.
determined to be within the allowable.
Okay.
Any other questions, comments? Hearing none. Next item, table bills. Bill number 4623, I believe this is ready to come off the table. So if I could have a motion.
Motion to remove table bill 4623.
Second.
And a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Go ahead and read.
Bill number 4623, an ordinance authorizing the county executive to execute Surface Transportation Program Agreement, Federal Project STP 7302669, with the Missouri Highways and Transportation Commission for allocation of funds to 80% of the eligible cost up to a maximum amount of $1,500,000 for work associated with the construction of an interchange at Route 364 and Guttermouth Road.
Any comments or questions? Do we need to read this one more time and call the roll?
Yes, and just note that the exhibits to these next four bills, we didn't have them at the time, at the first meeting, and now they are available. That's why they're ready to proceed.
Okay, thank you.
An ordinance authorizing the county executive to execute Surface Transportation Program Agreement, Federal Project STP 7302669, with the Missouri Highways and Transportation Commission for allocation of funds to 80% of the eligible cost up to a maximum amount of $1,500,000 for work associated with the construction of an interchange at Route 364 and Guttermouth Road. Councilmember Hammond?
Yes.
Councilmember Hollander?
Yes.
Councilmember Klinghammer?
Yes.
Councilmember White?
Yes.
Councilmember Brazel?
Yes.
Councilmember Elam?
Yes.
She said Elon, I didn't hear her.
We sound so much alike.
That bill passes. Moving on to Bill 4625. I also need a motion to remove this from the table.
I'd like to make a motion to remove table bill number 4625.
Second.
I got a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Please read the bill.
An ordinance authorizing the county executive to execute Surface Transportation Program Agreement, Federal Project STP 7302673, with the Missouri Highways and Transportation Commission for allocation of funds to 80% of the eligible cost up to a maximum amount of $440,000 for work associated with the replacement of a deficient bridge on Seaburger Road.
Any questions? Hearing none.
An ordinance authorizing the county executive to execute Surface Transportation Program Agreement, Federal Project STP 7302673, with the Missouri Highways and Transportation Commission for allocation of funds to 80% of the eligible cost up to a maximum amount of $440,000 for work associated with the replacement of a deficient bridge on Seaburger Road. Councilmember Hollander?
Yes.
Councilmember Klinghammer?
Yes.
Councilmember White?
Yes.
Councilmember Brazel?
Yes.
Councilmember Elam?
Yes.
Councilmember Hammond?
Yes. That bill passes. Moving on to Bill number 4626. I need a motion to remove that from the table.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to remove table bill number 4626.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
An
Please read.
ordinance authorizing the county executive to execute Surface Transportation Program Agreement Federal Project STP 7302672 with the Missouri Highways and Transportation Commission for allocation of funds to 60% of the eligible cost up to a maximum amount of $235,000 for work associated with removal and realignment of a curve on Schwady Road.
Any comments or questions? Hearing none, please read and call the roll.
An ordinance authorizing the county executive to execute Surface Transportation Program Agreement Federal Project STP 7302672 with the Missouri Highways and Transportation Commission for allocation of funds to 60% of the eligible costs up to a maximum amount of $235,000 for work associated with the removal and realignment of a curve on Schwady Road. Councilmember Klinghammer?
Yes.
Councilmember White?
Yes.
Councilmember Brazel?
Yes.
Councilmember Elam?
Yes.
Councilmember Hammond?
Yes.
Councilmember Hollander?
Yes.
That bill passes. Moving on to Bill number 4627.
Yes, I'd like to remove tabled bill number 4627
I have a second.
from the table.
Second.
A motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
An
Please read the
ordinance-
bill.
Oh, I'm sorry. An ordinance authorizing the county executive to execute the Transportation Alternatives Funds Program Agreement, Federal Project TAP 7302617, with the Missouri Highways and Transportation Commission for allocation of funds to 80% of the eligible cost, up to a maximum amount of $559,700 for work associated with the construction of a multi-use trail along a portion of Pittman Hill Road.
Have any comments or questions? Hearing none, please read and call the roll.
An ordinance authorizing the county executive to execute the Transportation Alternatives Funds Program Agreement, Federal Project TAP 7302617, with the Missouri Highways and Transportation Commission for allocation of funds to 80% of the eligible costs up to a maximum amount of $559,700 for work associated with the construction of a multi-use trail along a portion of Pittman Hill Road. Councilmember White?
Yes.
Councilmember Brazel?
Yes.
Councilmember Elam?
Yes.
Councilmember Hammond?
Yes.
Councilmember Hollander?
Yes.
Councilmember Klinghammer?
Yes.
That bill passes. Next item is announcements or miscellaneous. Do we have any announcements or miscellaneous tonight?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I'd like to just take the opportunity to thank all of you for being there for the EOC opening the other day, and again, thank all the people who are here and those who aren't for all the hard work they did building that beautiful building and providing the services that we're going to be able to provide. So thank you and thank them.
It's a great building.
Yes, impressive.
Anything else? How about a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We're adjourned.
Why is